Hey everybody, before we get started, I just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Ahigo Comics and Drago66. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies. And it would really help us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's time, once again, to talk about Star Wars Legion by Fantasy Flight Games. Yes, it took a little longer than I expected. I'd have to double check what the exact date was on the last news video? That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm a little tired, but I like to do these videos promptly, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way. And hopefully I don't sound too stupid. Thanks, editing. Anyway, we are here to talk about Legion, and finally news has come out, the preview article for the Scout Troopers. What does the article even say? When are they coming out? God, I have a lot of balls in the air. So let's see. Oh, okay, they don't even give a date on the article. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're here to talk about Scout Troopers. We're going to go ahead and talk about them. And much like a couple of the last previews, this is going to be pretty focused on the units and their specials, because we already know all the gear upgrades and stuff. Anyway, going to go ahead and move right on into that. So, pretty sure we've seen these before, but regular Scout Troopers, they cost 60 points for a 4-man cell. They have 1 wound each, they have 2 courage, they have a white defense die, they don't have an offense to surge, probably good because of reasons. They do have a defensive surge conversion. They're speed 2. They can do heavy weapon training, comms, gear, grenade upgrades. They have low profile, which means their cover is improved by 1 if they have light cover. They have scout 1, so after you deploy, you can make a speed 1 move. And they have sharpshooter 1, so they reduce cover by 1. So basically, well, before we get into that, we'll cover the weapons really quick, I guess. They've got an unarmed for 1 black die, and then they've got their EC-17 holdout blasters for 2 black dice at range 1 to 2. They cost the exact same as the Rebel Commandos in this configuration, which makes sense because their stats are roughly identical, except the Scout Troopers trade Scout 2 and a range band for having 2 black dice on their primary weapons. So, with, 4 of them, that's 8 black dice if you can get into range 2. Very nasty. Right? Very effective. On their own, I mean, they're very expensive and they don't got a lot of health, even if they have the extra courage. It's not a super great investment, I think, to run them naked with 60 points, just for the extra dice, but you can probably do some interesting things, I think, with them, and use a couple of their gear slots to do effective things. But a lot of this, I think, is going to be in the heavy weapon upgrades, which we will cover in a second, because like I said, there's basically no point to talk about any of the other upgrades, because they've all been covered to death, because they're in, 5 expansions now, and Scout Troopers is the last article. So, yeah, on their own, like I said, I don't think Scout Troopers are super worth it with the reduced range. If you know what you're doing, or you know what kind of terrain boards you're going to be fighting on, maybe you can use that to your advantage a bit like Fleet Troopers. Low profile does mean that they get full cover benefits from just light cover, which helps them out a little bit. The scout mobility lets you tuck them into cover and get them scooching around earlier, but like I said, I don't think it's worth it outright just because of the shorter range, and like I said, the fact that literally they cost 60 points for 4 dudes who still have 1 armor and have white defense die with surge. Now, on the other hand, the Scout Trooper Strike Team, who have the heavy weapons team keyword, which in case you forgot means you have to equip a heavy weapon with them. Pretty normal stuff. They are just 16 points, plus obviously your heavy weapon guy, but still, that baseline cost is a lot lower. I think it's a lot more effective, especially once we get into their heavy weapon options, which we will in just a second. But otherwise, the stats are all the same. So you have to equip a heavy weapon, so obviously that's why they're quite so cheap. They're just literally the single mini cost. More, same speed, same weapons, all that other stuff. Because of the lowered cost, I think you're slightly better at a chance to risk this. And obviously it works pretty good with the sniper team idea, a lot like Rebel Commandos. But we will cover what kind of options you could have. In general, for both of them, I'll say that I think with their gear slot, environmental gear is really good to let them just become unhindered and move over stuff. I can't really think of anything super great. I mean, obviously emergency stims comes in this pack, so maybe you want to do that to, capitalize on the fact that unlike a lot of other Imperial units, they aren't super defensive. They've still only got that white with surge. And there are probably some other options out there. For grenades, dunno. I mean, I guess a bit like fleet troopers, you could go for a, concussion grenade situation, add some blast, be great at your anti-infantry, or you could make sure you have anti-armor because these guys really don't. That's an unfortunate fact about scout troopers. I actually thought they were going to be more anti-armor leaning than the rebel equivalents, but they really aren't. But we'll cover that a little bit, I think, when we talk about their weapon upgrades. But yeah, so there are a couple different options here you could go with. Like I said, mostly you probably want to think of these guys a lot like fleet troopers because while they're more expensive, they do have a really nasty attack with 2 black dice. And their scout and low profile abilities make them a little bit more defensive, especially if you're playing with the right terrain. So let's actually talk about those heavy weapon teams. So first, of course, we're going to talk about the DLT-19X Sniper. That's the unit I've wanted to talk about forever, especially since we didn't have the details. Now, sadly, and they even remark on this in the article, this is not quite the DLT that your stormtroopers are packing. It's only got 2 black dice, and it doesn't have any impact. That's why I said these guys really aren't anti-armor. It's, in fact, roughly the equivalent of the Rebel Sniper Rifle, except for one thing. 2 black dice. Not 1 black, 1 white, 2 black dice. Still got high velocity, and still got Pierce 1, and it's only 28 points. That's 2 more points than the Rebel counterpart. For an upgrade from a white die to a black die, that's a steal. In fact, the other reason why I think the prices are so comparable is because Rebel Commandos have a surge to hit conversion, whereas the Scout Troopers do not, because with as many black dice as they have, that's crazy. So, for starters, this means you get Pierce 1 in your regular attack pool because it's range 1 to beyond. And then, of course, with high velocity, that means that if you want to reach out and touch somebody, if you can see them at any range, even beyond range 4, you can drop 2 black dice on them with high velocity, which means they can't spend dodge tokens. And you get a Pierce 1, and you get a Sharpshooter 1. Very effective, especially with, like I said, the low cost of the strike team. DLT-19X snipers are going to be pretty good because of that extra black die. That's just quite a bit more. Actually, I could compare the probabilities, but if I'm not mistaken anyway, it's a bigger move up than just a offensive surge was on a, white die. So yeah, very, I think, cost-effective, very useful for these guys. I like them a lot. I am a little disappointed, as I suspect a lot of Imperial players are, that the DLT-19X is a bit of a downgrade compared to the regular DL-19. I assume that's because this is like the long-range semi-automatic version, not like full-bore, going heavy full auto. Which kind of makes sense about the dice conversion. The loss of impact's a little sad because, like I said, it means these guys have basically no anti-armor unless you give them impact grenades, which, especially for snipers, ideally, you're never going to be close enough to use impact grenades. So you're probably going to want to make sure you have some other kind of anti-armor solution than your scout troopers, okay? Now let's talk about the Sonic Charge guys. So, Sonic Charge Saboteur. This is very interesting to me because it costs 26 points, which is the exact same cost as the Rebel version, the Proton Charge Saboteur. And in the case of the Sonic Charge Saboteur, there's some slight differences. First of all, instead of 2 white dice, in addition to your red die, you have a single black die. I don't know if that's worth it, because they both have surge to crit conversion. So technically that means there are less crits you could roll this way, but, don't know. It's a trade of some sort. So the important thing is they both have blast, and instead of impact, the Sonic Charge Saboteur has suppressive, which, to be honest, I kind of expected. It was either going to be some kind of pierce effect or it was going to be suppressive. So suppressive means that these guys are much more anti-infantry. They ignore cover, they have a surge to crit, so with 2 dice, that means you could theoretically bank on the fact that you could roll some natural crits on armor, but it's not the same as an impact, right? It's not the same as a guaranteed conversion, so not as great. But very useful for area denial for infantry, because it doesn't just mean that these guys are going to take unprotected shots, right? It's not just that they're going to take a little bit of damage from those 2 dice. They are for sure taking, well, almost entirely for sure anyway, taking a suppression token, which will really slow up any advance. So it's a lot better, I think, of an area denial weapon than the Proton Charge is, especially with the way detonating is. It's so fun. So I wasn't super interested in these guys at first, but yeah, seeing them, I think they got a lot of strategic value. Unlike the proton charge, like I said, you can't use them for anti-armor, which is, I think, what you do a lot of. You'd use it for light anti-armor duties, or just, a hypothetical anti-armor, like, you don't want to take your big heavy vehicle down this road. I've littered it with mines. The sonic charge is that especially for infantry. Quite frankly, units with armor, like an ATST sees this, they don't care about suppression. You've only got 2 dice with a couple of possible crit icons, right? You're talking like 2 out of 8 shots on each die. You will probably take that chance. But for infantry, it might not be worth it. It can be used to very critically slow down some people. Very interesting, I think, like I said. So basically, we're at the end of the episode. The pack has been confirmed to contain HQ uplink, duck and cover, and then emergency stims. We know about all these from previous articles. Duck and cover, you take a suppression token when you're attacked, so you can basically trigger low profile and get lots of cover. HQ uplink means you can give yourself an order. Very useful, I think, for scout troopers, especially if you're planning on running boba. And then emergency stims lets you offset wounds. I personally would prefer environmental gear on scout troopers, either version, so that they can more freely move over cover. That makes them dangerous. It's a bit like how the Wookiees are going to turn out, because they're very range limited, right? So you are going to want to use the fact that Wookiees are naturally unhindered to hop over cover and plug people in melee. Scout troopers are similar. For the Imperials, you're going to want to give them environmental gear so they can hop barricades and stuff. Leap through hedges, jog through forests, so they can get up close, and they don't have to get as close as Wookiees or Royal Guards do. But emergency, like with the way they are with their lighter defenses, I do think that for a full team, emergency stims could be worth it. And then, like I said before, HQ uplink is probably just a good idea because these guys are moving around. You're going to want to give them either long-range comlinks or like an HQ uplink or something. So that's all the upgrades. I suppose, was Palp announced first? I think Palp was announced first. We will probably see preview articles for that sometime next month. Probably not going to hear anything else out of them. They still haven't officially announced the Specialist Pack, I don't think, or at least I haven't seen it. If they had, somebody be sure to link me to that article because I didn't see it. So there's not much else to talk about. I'll admit, I'm a little disappointed the Scout Troopers are quite so samey with the Rebel Commandos. I mean, it's good, obviously, to have unit parity, right? Like, that's always a concern, especially with the way Legion's releases are scattered. Most of the flavor is in variable numbers of dices. It's barely even variable in range. But I do still like them. I like them a lot. I'll be happy to try them out. I should probably boot up Tabletop Simulator. I haven't done that in a while. I've been very busy with other stuff on the channel. Anyway, I'll see you guys whenever the next news comes out. Whatever it is. God knows X-Wing finally launched so they can stop giving me redundant articles about 2.0 that nobody who's actively searching for shit like on YouTube actually cares about. But maybe we'll get some previews for some actual real shit I can talk about. Anyway, gonna let you guys go. Remember, if you like this video, give it a like. If you have any comments down below, like what you're going to do with Scout Troopers, leave those in the comment section. And of course, if you're new here and have not already, please subscribe. The Star Wars videos only come out as frequently as FFG gives me news to work with, but it's there. Plus, when that Clone Wars RPG book comes out, I'm going to run a Clone Wars RPG campaign, and I'll post the actual plays to this channel. So that's the thing. But yeah, it's a great way to keep track of us. Even if you are subscribed, don't forget to hit the bell for notifications, and consider supporting us on Patreon because you can get access to episodes early. Could have got this a whole day earlier. Anyway, see you guys. Happy hunting, everybody. Thanks for your time.